He also uses the word let's in two consecutive, that is in the previous two lines. In the last line he has used let's not speak in any language, and again in the next line he has again began the next line too with let's stop for 1 second. So when repeatedly two lines, consecutive lines, begin with the same word let's, it's the poetic device known as anaphora. Now let's move over to the next lines. It would be an exotic moment. Without rush, without engines, we would all be together in a sudden strangeness. Now we are always on the move. We are all busy in accomplishing our work and go on rushing in our lives. The poet even urged to stop engines. That is referring to all the industrial works causing harms to the environment. Right now, the whole of the world has stopped everything. All the industries have been stopped. Everyone is holed up in their houses. Has predicted this has to come over in the world in order to have a perfect environment, perfect world, wherein we can feel oneness among ourselves. The poet urges us to stop all our personal activities and to stop the engines. Engines here denotes all the industrial units and all the vehicles, and he asks us all to unite in one tune, that is the tune of silence. But he does not advocate here that it is to be complete silence. The poet declares silence is an exotic thing because this silence will make us blissful, strange, and will bring complete equilibrium in this world. Now actually the world has changed. Mother Earth is recuperating itself and the rivers have become cleaner, the world has become cleaner. The people, there is little bit humanity among people. Let us move over to the poetic devices. Now the words without has been repeated. So the poetic device here is repetition. Next we are having the poetic device alliteration, that is the words we would. One more poetic device, that is alliteration itself, that is sudden strangeness, because they begin with the same sound, consonantal sound. Let's move over to the next lines. Fisherman in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would look at his hurt hands. The poet says that if we are all still, and we shall be able to introspect the mistakes and the wrongs done. Now here the fishermen are the representative of all kinds of tyrants and killers. The poet wants them to cease their work. Cease their work means to stop their work and realize their mistakes. The salt gatherer is explained as the representative of the poor and the lower section of the society who would go to any level to earn their livelihood and often hurt themselves irreparably. Now here the fishermen are the symbol of all kinds of tyrants and killers, and the man gathering salt is the representative of the poor and the lower section of the society. Now here the poetic device used is cold sea, that is symbolized as the polar region. Now here his hurt hands, it's the alliteration. Now let's go over to the next lines. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victories with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing. Now the poet here condemns the people with green wars. Green wars is the biological weapons of the creators of pollution, and wars with fire and gas, that is the atomic war. They become victorious but with no survivors left. That is, at the end of any war, we have no survivors. The poet mocks at the victory of those people who get victory over destruction. The poet asks them to leave the path of destruction and join the group of silence. He urges them to put on white, symbolizing peace, purity, and serenity, and walk with others doing nothing, meaning anything negative, and doing self-introspection. The poetic devices used here are words with, that is alliteration, again words with, that is repetition, And clean clothes, again, alliteration. Now let us move over to the next lines. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. I want no truck with death. The poet here warns us that his message of silence should not be confused with total inactivity or inertia. He further clears that his message does not have any affinity with death even. His message is aimed at the way of living. He wants us to stop a while and feel the tranquility so that a positive introspection is done. Now, the last stanza of the poem. If we were not so single minded about keeping our lives moving and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and threatening ourselves with death. Perhaps the earth can teach us as when everything seems dead and the later proves to be alive. We human beings are single minded. We are always busy in achieving our goals, completing personal responsibilities, and we never stop a while to evaluate ourselves and understand ourselves. We never understand that we shall never be able to come out of these desires and achievements. If we could stop a while from these using, we could have understood the real purpose of our lives and ourselves. Rather, we go on with the fear of death calculation, how much of our dreams and wishes will be achieved. Now he uses the earth that perhaps the earth can teach us as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Now in many of the countries wherein true winter is there, during winter everything seems to be dead. But when the spring season comes about, everything proves to be alive. He says that all of us have to be stopped for a moment and then introspect ourselves, retrospect, which will lead into a mutual understanding. The poetic devices in use here is alliteration. We were. Now I'll count up to 12 and you keep quiet and I will go. In the conclusion, the poet taught us through the example of earth, which at one season may look as if dead but comes back in life in another season. Likewise, our life will also bear certain meaning when we walk on the right path, that is, introspecting in silence. In the last two lines, the poet leaves us to introspect as he himself has gone through the same. And the poetic device used here is dead and alive, that is, contrast or antithesis. Hope you have understood the poem. Thank you.